Welcome in here to the DMV zone. Let's get you behind the scenes of all the stories we're working on here in real time. I'm Rena Morocco. A busy day in the Fox 5 newsroom as we get to it all. Time for your top 3 at 3 as we talk about everything from pushback against a pipeline project to AI and your finances. But like we said off the top, let's get you outside as we look ahead at our weather here. We started with some beautiful weather, not expected to hold this week, unfortunately, as we give you outside and give you a live look from our Stacks camera here. Kaylin Roth joining us with a check of this summer forecast, and it sure felt like summer today, but
it did.
Rain is impending.
Yes, Marina, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to see everybody.
Good to see you. Hopefully you enjoyed what was a lovely weekend.
It was beautiful
really nice
out
break.
there. Yeah, no complaints,
yes.
But things are about to change.
They are. As we knew, we'd have to get back to deep summer weather, as I like to call it. Last week of July, August begins on Saturday. We won't get out of this week unscathed, just like every other week so far of the summer. And in fact, it was last Tuesday that was our busy day with the showers and storms. It looks like tomorrow, this Tuesday, will be the same thing. Frontal system off to our west. You see the big storms over Chicago, dropping down across portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and into eastern Michigan. So everything's kind of crossing Lake Michigan and dropping southeastward into the Ohio Valley. Very scattered stuff over the eastern seaboard. So closer to home, we haven't had much locally. We're not expected to. There's a good amount of energy along the lower eastern shore and for our beaches. In fact, that severe thunderstorm warning just south of Salisbury for a gusty storm that's headed towards just south of Ocean City, Maryland. And it looks like that was just extended southward to west of Chincoteague. So that is all to say, another storm right there over Rehoboth, non-severe, that areas east of us could see some of these passing showers and storms continue deeper into the evening. And while we may have something very isolated in the city, tomorrow is the day to watch. So live look outside, hazy and overcast. Guess what? That is wildfire haze, this time from burning happening in Oregon. So this is not from Canada, but that smoke gets caught up in the jet stream, which moves west to east. And guess what? It's now over us. So that has helped to probably mitigate some of the storm development overhead. Again, there is definitely some stuff to the east. I just don't think we'll see anything locally this evening. 89 degrees here in Washington, dew point of 64. We noticed yesterday the humidity starting to creep up a bit, and that is more evident this afternoon. Temperatures are mostly in the 80s, mid to upper 80s. Dew points are mostly in the 60s. This is some typical summer, late July sort of stuff. So nothing abnormal here. Really see that humidity increase along the Chesapeake and points eastward where we're getting those storms to develop. That's where they're likely to stay for the next few hours. So I would say if you're along the bay or east towards the beaches, watch out for scattered storms. The rest of us, just a passing shower possible. Now, everything that's happening upstream of us today in the Ohio Valley looks to actually hold together overnight, and that means we could end up with some showers that we wake up to early tomorrow morning. So we will likely start out with some rain, and then depending on how much and how quickly we clear, that cold front will deliver a punch of some strong afternoon storms. This model has them at 3:30. I would say probably anytime between that 2 to 8 p.m. window, we'll have to be ready to see if we get those storms with the damaging winds, with the very heavy rainfall, perhaps an isolated tornado. And then later in the evening, maybe another passing shower. But I think at this moment, we're looking at a morning round and then a late afternoon round. So we are already outlooked that slight risk for damaging winds tomorrow here in the D.C. metro. Again, the rainfall threat, the rainfall threat has mostly been beneficial for us, like what we got last Tuesday. So unless it's too much too quickly in the same spots, it won't be a flooding concern, but that will be determined by the National Weather Service tomorrow, whether we'll be in a flood watch or not. The drought is really kind of piecemeal here. It's getting better for sure in the D.C. area, more of a moderate than a severe. This is last week, and then you compare it to this week. Not much has changed, but I guess overall we're seeing some improvement, as we should this time of year. July is our wettest month of the year. So to recap for this evening, no storms locally, temperatures warm, humid in the upper 80s and falling into the upper 70s after sunset. Tomorrow, watch out for those showers and storms come late afternoon. We may start off wet, and it's just going to kind of be one of those gloomy sort of days. Here's your 7-day forecast. Strong storms tomorrow. A late shower could still sneak in Wednesday, but then we quiet things down for the rest of the week. Thursday and Friday, a break in that humidity looks nice. Again, August begins this weekend, and temperatures look very seasonable in the upper 80s with just a shower possible by Sunday. Marina, back over to you.
All right, Kaylin, we'll be tracking that. We'll see you back at 4 o'clock.
Yep.
Thank you. Let's move on because D.C.'s Public Service Commission will hold an evidentiary hearing today and tomorrow on a controversial Washington gas request. The idea to spend $150 million on the third phase of a pipeline replacement project. The idea has faced pushback from D.C. and Maryland officials as well as environmental groups. Maryland Matters reporter Christine Condon has been following this story closely, and the pushback is across the board, but it doesn't seem as though there's an alternative that's been offered either. Where do things stand right now, Christine?
Yeah, in Maryland, so the story actually goes back to 2025 when Maryland legislators passed a law trying to tighten the rules around gas pipeline replacements and when utilities like Washington Gas can get their cost recovery in advance. And Maryland lawmakers basically said, Washington Gas and other utilities, if you want this, you need to show that you're doing these pipeline replacements for safety reasons and you've considered all kinds of alternatives. And what's happened here in Maryland is that the Maryland Office of People's Counsel, which represents ratepayers, actually sued the Maryland Public Service Commission and said, you are not enforcing that 2025 law, and you're allowing Washington Gas to move forward with its planned projects, even though Maryland lawmakers wanted you to change the way you consider these projects. So that's what's unfolding here in Maryland, and at the same time, we are seeing the Attorney General's office, I believe, in D.C. challenge the Washington Gas project list there as well.
So what happens if these state's attorneys, if they thrive, if they are successful in this? Does this all pause? Because this has been in the works for years, and there have been portions already replaced.
What folks, want to see, so what the Office of People's Counsel wants to see in Maryland is that the Public Service Commission kind of tighten up the project list and take a closer look at it, given the law that passed in 2025. And what the People's Counsel is arguing is that Maryland is not doing that yet, even though the law took effect last year. So they're hoping to see a smaller and more refined list of projects. And because what happens is consumers are paying the price for these projects with interest. And it's contributing to rising bills.
Okay. So what's next here? When do we hear back from Washington Gas? Where do things stand, at least in the courts, if you will?
Yeah, this case was only just filed in Maryland within the last week or so. So we'll see, response filings from Washington Gas. I reached out to the company and they, wanted to share that these replacements that they're doing, pipeline replacements, are focused on safety and on the reliability of the gas system and safety as it serves customers here in Maryland and D.C.
Yeah, I suppose there's an argument to be made that if these parts of the pipeline aren't replaced, that could be, of course, the detriment and to an unsafe situation. And clearly, by eradicating the money, that's also problematic as well. So we'll see what goes from here. And, of course, we'll follow your reporting. Christine Condon with Maryland Matters. We appreciate it. Thank you. Let's move on to Montgomery County, where there's uproar in the county as people learn their tax bill is higher than expected. Social media groups filled with people complaining that the hike is due to the tune of hundreds of dollars and left wondering why. Let's bring in Alexandria Barnes, a reporter with Montgomery Community Media, to break this all down. And this was one of the promises from the still county executive, Mark Elrich. The taxes would not rise, and yet it seems as though that may not be true. What happened here?
Yes, so as you just said, Montgomery County, they eliminated the 692 tax credit in May, and homeowners, they're now seeing this bill. While the county didn't raise this tax rate, or they didn't raise the tax rate, a lot of people, they're feeling this bill. It went up anyway. So I went through hundreds of comments on Reddit and social media, and just the volume told me that this is not just a handful of people who are upset. It's really widespread. And just kind of getting the neighborhood reaction, and then also the county executive, he says, it's a tax, not a tax. It's not a tax increase. Or he said it is a tax increase, plain and simple, no matter how the county frames it. And then I talked to the council president, who says that it's about equity. The money's going to schools and other services, and most residents get a tax break under the new structure. But obviously, with what we're seeing and hearing from homeowners in Montgomery County, it feels it's a challenge, especially if you're on a fixed income.
It increased, right? And I guess the bigger question is how and who allowed for that?
That's a question maybe for the council, but they did vote for this back in May for levy year 2026, which is now from July to July, starting in July 1st. And with the start of this particular credit that had been eliminated, it's now in effect, and homeowners are seeing this increase. And I actually talked to a couple of residents in Montgomery County. One lady who had been retired for almost 30 years, she looked at her bill and said, "I don't even make this much money."
Wow.
And she hadn't even realized that the $692 credit had been on her bill in past years. And then another resident I talked to, she told me about a separate senior tax credit that expires after just 7 years, and her words were, "Too bad, so sad." So there are a lot of different elements and a lot of different people who are being impacted, whether that are people who have jobs who have been affected by the federal government layoffs last year, and also for seniors who are on a fixed income.
So what's the recourse now? If you had people like this senior you spoke with who had that 7-year credit and it expired, or this other woman who also had a credit that no longer ceased to exist as of effective now, is the county looking to provide some backdoor credits, if you will, to try and offset what, especially for this woman who says she can't afford this, she doesn't make this money?
Yeah, definitely would need to contact. I would definitely recommend residents in Montgomery County, contact SSTAT, which is through the state of Maryland, then also the Montgomery County, to help them kind of think about what could be next steps for them to be able to receive some type of resources or support for this particular credit that was eliminated. But if you do own a home in Montgomery County, I definitely would also recommend that people check whether they have a homestead application on file, because that matters if the credit does ever come back. It was just eliminated for just this year.
All right, you got to look at a fine line and the fine print just about everywhere to see where you can get a break, if anywhere at all. Given everything that's happening, good to talk to you, Alexandria.
Thank you.
Stay with us here on the DMV Zone. We'll be right back.